观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看《洋厨房》，我是刘烨。世界美味与你共尝。如果醒来的时候能够吃到一份营养又美味的早餐，那一整天都是活力满满。而对于上班族来说早餐吃什么一直都是头疼的事儿。那今天的麦家秀就要为大家来介绍连吃3天都不会腻的早餐究竟是什么呢？赶紧来看一下。
I'm Rachel Khoo, and there's nothing I like more than the simple things in life. Like home cooking, made with the kind of ingredients you can buy at the local shop. The most delicious dishes don't need to be complicated.
Oh, it smells so amazing.
With a little bit of creativity and confidence, you can easily turn ordinary ingredients into extraordinary meals.
It's like going on holiday without leaving your kitchen.The
kind of meals that put a smile on your face.
It's going to be hard not to eat it all.
And those wonderful flavours and aromas that turn your house into a home. Sometimes the dishes I look forward to most are the ones with a little bit of history. Here are my timeless favourites. A real treat, a caramel-topped semolina pudding. Delicious stuffed peppers and tomatoes. But first, a culinary classic, French onion soup.Now, my onion soup is going to combine lots of different versions of onions. I've got some spring onions for freshness. I've been to Japan a few times and you can soup ramen there. And they do massive heaps of spring onions on the ramen. And it's just so fresh and vibrant. It's a touch I really love to do at home. To the chopped spring onions, add 40 grams of butter. While that melts, I'm going to add my regular onions. So onion soup was originally a peasant dish. It was a dish that people who didn't have much would make because it literally required only some onions and some stock. I use 3 large onions, finely sliced. I love the smell of onions frying in butter. This gets my tummy rumbling. It's kind of the aroma of something delicious about to happen.I'm frying my onions in butter because butter will caramelise the onions much better. There are milk solids in the butter which turn into sugars. So if you rush this part and you're like, oh, I've had enough, I'm just going to pour in the stock, then you're going to get like a half-flavoured onion soup. So I've got 5 cloves of garlic. Crush straight into the pot. See, the great thing about the garlic press, you don't even have to peel the garlic. I'm going to add some fennel seeds. Now, fennel seeds have this lovely light aniseed flavour, which some people are not so keen on, but in this recipe, all it does is kind of give the soup an extra bit of warmth. So I'm going to sprinkle those in. About a teaspoon.So my onions, they've been on their holiday to the south of France. They've got a nice tan. To that I'm going to add some white wine, dry white wine. It's going in the pan. 400 millilitres is perfect. And now I'm just going to cook off some of that alcohol so it's not too overpowering. Turn up the heat a little bit. I'm going to use vegetable stock. Add 1.5 litres of stock and my secret ingredient.This is yeast extract, and it's really useful to have for vegetarian dishes because it adds that rich savouriness you want in a dish. So I'm just going to melt that into the stock. You want to let your soup simmer for about 45 minutes so the flavours have time to kind of develop and mingle, and you end up with a rich soup.While the soup is simmering away, I'm going to make some cheesy onion crisps and croutons. The crisps are really easy to do. All you need is another onion, or you could use a shallot if you wanted to. Similar technique. What I like about this soup is you're using the onions in different forms. You've obviously got the caramelized, cooked down onions in the soup. Then we're going to add some fresh green onion tops at the end, and pickled onions. And then we're going to have some crispy onions. So it's really showing that a humble onion can be transformed in all different types of textures and tastes and flavours.
Simply chop the half an onion into thirds and pull apart to make petals.
I'm going to add some croutons. So this is the kind of thing you can do with some old bread you have at home. That. To make them cheesy, the onions need some cheese. So I'm using a hard cheese, like a mature cheddar, a parmesan. Not that important what type of cheese you use, as long as it's hard and it's got a lot of flavour. Wow, I'm really going to town with the cheese. It's a mountain of cheese. Yeah, well, my mum is from the Alps. This is in my blood. Okay, and now you just want to toss it a little bit together. Croutons and the onion petals are going to go into a preheated oven at 190 degrees fan for about 15 minutes, or until they're golden and crispy. And you might need to toss them halfway through the cooking period. Oh, wow. Look at these crunchy croutons. And you've got all these crunchy bits of cheese on it. And you're like, ooh, crispy onions. Onions and cheese, such a good combination. Let's pull this all together. Oh, look at that. Smells amazing. So ladle some soup into your bowl. Now, that bowl of soup would be delicious on its own, but I'm going to make it even better with my crispy, crunchy, cheesy onion croutons. Pile them on top. And then, don't forget, a bit of freshness with the green onions. Pièce de résistance. A pop from some pickled onions. This is an optional extra, but I think these little pickled onions, what they do is give that little bit of kick, that bit of acidity to the soup. And it's no wonder this soup has survived generations. What a dish. Too delicious. Too good.
Semolina pudding is a childhood favourite. Mine has a sophisticated twist and a French-inspired caramel crust.
I'm using semolina, and semolina is Durham wheat, which has been milled. So for the pudding, you want finely milled semolina. You can also get coarsely milled, and that's better for, like, if you're making a polenta-style dish. But the pudding, you want a nice smooth texture. The semolina is also going to thicken up your pudding, so you don't need to add any eggs. It's just milk and semolina. I'm using almond milk for this pudding. You could use normal milk. I would go full fat for this, so you get a lovely rich flavour. Almond milk is really lovely to use because it's got a nice nutty flavour to it. You could also use coconut milk, soya milk, any milk you fancy, so you can make it plant-based if you like.
Pour 500 millilitres into a warm pan.
You want to start at a low heat, so that will give you a chance to whisk in the semolina so you don't get lumps. There is nothing worse than lumpy semolina pudding.
Add 35 grams of semolina.
What we're looking for is the semolina to thicken up the milk and create that perfect texture. Keep on whisking so none of the semolina sticks to the bottom of the pan and catches and burns. The milk has turned a pale yellow colour from the semolina. I really like this combination of old school dessert with that French twist, kind of making it a bit more sophisticated in a very easy and effortless way. You're looking for double cream consistency, and that will continue to thicken or set when it cools. I'm adding some prunes to my semolina pudding. They add a natural sweetness and a little bit of chew, bit of texture in the semolina pudding. At this point, I'm just going to stir in the prunes. They go in. So you could use dried apricots, dried figs, raisins, any dried fruit really. That's the pudding done. I'm just going to pop it into my ramekins. And I'm actually using these little teacups I found at the charity shop. I think they're quite cute to use. I must admit, I have a little bit of a problem. I love going to charity shops and picking up, you know, random bits of crockery. It's one of my favourite things to do. Ladle in your pudding. So they need to go into the fridge for at least half an hour to chill and also create that skin on the top so you can make that caramel crust with the sugar. You can even do this the night beforehand.
I've made semolina puddings by mixing semolina and almond milk and stirring through chopped prunes. The desserts were put in the fridge for 30 minutes to set. And now I'm going to give them a crispy caramel topping.
You can see they've developed this little skin on top, which is what you want to make your caramel crust. And also they have this satisfying wobble. Now, to do your caramel crust, I'm using just caster sugar. I think that works the best because I just want that thin crust on top. Some people like to use raw cane sugar, which has more of a crunch, but I want a thin, even layer. Now, the easiest way to get an even layer is to sprinkle the sugar from up top.
Use 4 tablespoons of sugar.
Now for the fun part. Who doesn't love a little bit of blowtorching in the kitchen? So, always make sure you have your ramekins on a metal surface, like on a baking tray, or this is a baking dish. Don't do it on a wooden surface. So a small flame, and then I'm just gonna lightly brush. So satisfying doing this. Ooh! If you don't have a blowtorch, what you could do is take a large metal spoon, heat it up in a gas flame. When it gets really hot, you can just run it over the sugar and it should caramelize it, or otherwise stick it under the grill. That also works. But I think the best technique is using a blowtorch. Now, all you're left to do is serve it. Be careful, it might be a little bit hot. Can you hear that little crack? That's what you want. It's the best bit, cracking into the crust. You can actually see that thin layer of caramel on top. It's creamy pudding underneath. It's that comfort feeling. You know, the creamy pudding with that crunchy crust on top. And that little bit of sweetness from the caramel and from the prunes.
A mouth-watering makeover for an old-school pudding. classic of French cuisine. This simple dish is really packed full of flavours.
I'm going to be making peppers stuffed with a delicious smoky rice. Now, when you make rice, I'm using whole grain here. You could use plain rice, you could use red rice, wild rice, but I like whole grain. Has a bit of a wholesome flavour to it, a bit nutty. You need to wash rice to wash off some of that starch so the rice doesn't stick to each other. In that goes. And some water.
Add 300 millilitres of water to 150 grams of rice.
Get the last bit of the grains out. This recipe is based on a dish from Provence, the south of France. And usually you stuff whatever vegetables you had in your garden. So whether it's tomatoes, peppers, maybe little round courgettes, even aubergines. Cut your tomato and then scoop out the insides. And these little tomato hats, they go on your tray as well. They're going to be roasted. If you're lucky enough to have a French grandma, she'd make this for you. So there's nothing better than giving old recipes a new lease of life. Now the tomato cores, you could save and just pop it into the soup. So my grandma used to make stuffed peppers too, but she would mix up the rice with some mincemeat, which she'd fry off, and she actually did whole peppers. But I quite like doing halves because it means you can get different colours and you can mix it up with tomatoes as well. So if you don't like peppers, you can have a tomato instead. And when I lived in Paris, in the summertime, you would also get these fabulous little round courgettes, and they were great for stuffing as well. Tomatoes and peppers are prepped. I'm going to chop up my onion. I'm using a red onion here. It's a little bit sweeter than a regular brown onion.
Fry the onions in a drizzle of olive oil and add 125 grams of chopped mushrooms.
There's something comforting about knowing that this recipe has been made before by many people. I like the fact that it's retro. I've also got some capers. I love capers. I always find they're like little green pearls with that pop of acidity in there. Quite tart. Just freshen and enliven everything.
Add a tablespoon of capers.
And then I've got some raisins which I've soaked in some warm water so they plump up.
Add 40 grams of soaked raisins and a handful of olives.
In they go. Now add my cooked rice. So you could use leftover rice as well, or lentils. Works really well too. So I've got some smoked paprika here. And then I've got a blend of dried herbs. So in Provence, they have this herbe de Provence. And it's usually a blend of basil, thyme, oregano. Sometimes they put a little bit of lavender. I mean, everybody has their own secret blend. Just a combination of some thyme and oregano would work.
2 teaspoons of mixed dried herbs is perfect.
Now the filling's done. I'm going to stuff those into my peppers and tomatoes. Right, let's get the last bits of rice. The colours look spectacular. I mean, that bright yellow, the red, the green. It's already so appetizing. And once it goes into the oven, it's just going to make this kitchen smell divine. The whole house will be smelling like Provence.
Pop them in a preheated oven at 180 degrees fan for around half an hour until they are tender.
They smell amazing. Look at these. These little parcels packed full of Provençal flavours. I'm going to put some on the plate here. And you can see The peppers have softened and they're really tender. You've got a bit of crunchy rice on top. It's that perfect combination of soft and tender and crunchy. Lots of exciting textures going on. Optional extra, a few fresh herbs. I've got a bit of coriander here. Or you could take a bit of chives, basil. It's like a herbe de Rachel, some herbs from Rachel's little pot. And just tear it up. Scatter them on. And then the last drizzle of olive oil. If you've got a nice extra virgin olive oil, this would be the time to use it. These stuffed peppers are a little blast from the past. Absolutely magical. And try a little bit of the rice. The rice still has this fantastic bite to it. And then you have all the fantastic herbe de Provence, the raisin, the capers, the olives, packed full of flavour.
3 super simple recipes. Ageless classics. Perfect for any time. When it comes to a speedy snack, my buckwheat pancakes, both savoury and sweet, always hit the mark.
Now with pancakes, the first one is always usually a disaster, but that's normal, so don't worry about that. I want to get the pancake nice and hot. I actually like when the pancakes have that kind of crispy, lace-like edge. Make sure you stir the batter because sometimes the flour sits at the bottom. So give it a stir, pour a little bit of batter in. I'm using this little stick. They use a lot in crêperies, in French pancake places. Now, this is where you have to have a little bit of patience. If you try flipping the pancake or turning the pancake over right now, it's just going to stick. But what you want is that caramelization to happen at the bottom of your pancake. So give it a couple of minutes, and then when the dough, the batter, starts to ease off the pan, you know it's ready to turn over. When I was a kid, we always used to have sugar and lemon. Nothing beats sugar and lemon. That little sprinkle and that bit of acidity from that lemon juice, it's just perfect. These ones traditionally are with savoury fillings, but I like that nuttiness with a sweet filling too.
When you make each pancake, you can store them in a warm oven while you concentrate on the filling.
So I'm going to grab a pancake from the oven. And pop a little bit of the spinach ricotta. Pop some in the middle there. So you take your egg. Pop your egg on top. And then what you can do is fold it over. Like a parcel. And that's your spinach and egg ricotta filling. I'm gonna make a sweet one now too.
Add butter and a sprinkle of sugar to a hot pan. Then add some tinned peaches.
When you see that sauce, the sugar starting to melt and the butter starting to melt, that's when you know you're going in the right direction. Peaches have caramelized nicely. I mean, caramelized peaches with a scoop of ice cream and those delicious pancakes. Perfect.
好，今天的节目呢就到这里了，感谢您的收看，下周同一时间我们不见不散。